I think it's very important that as parents, you understand the developmental tasks that they are facing at this time. The first task is the one that you are all very intimately aware of, which is autonomy from parents. All of a sudden, your teen does not want any help from you. Any help you try to offer them suggestions is equivalent to being branded like a baby in their mind. They are also starting to question your rules and to push the limits. How many accusing voices have you heard from teens because you wouldn't let them see an R-rated movie, go out late at night, or have unlimited phone privilege like all their friends do? And I think as parents, you can make your job 50% easier by just recognizing that, while it is your job to make sure they don't do anything crazy, it is their job to push the limits. Because how else can they learn to be autonomous? When they question you and when they say no to you, they are actually learning and practicing how to be assertive and how to negotiate. And this is a very important skill for them to get, and it's much safer for them to do it with you than for them to do it with their boss down the line or with a police officer outside of the homes. Parents tell me this process is so stressful, and I tell them, you know what? It's very stressful for your teens too. First, independence is a confusing concept. Sometimes it is encouraged by the family. So being able to do the homework independently, wake up by themselves, you're like, hooray, do more of that. Other times, when they are trying to go somewhere without your supervision, engaging in new behaviors that in their mind is an adventure, but in your mind is reckless, those times you tell them, no, this is to be discouraged. So it's confusing for them. So when I do private counseling with teens, a lot of times they do tell me that they have a lot of difficulty saying goodbye to their childhood. So yes, on the one hand, they want to grow up. You know, they want to have all the independence. But on the other hand, there's a lot of feelings of loss. And I think that often parents do not recognize it. And you know, they are sort of weirded out that suddenly my teenage son, who wants nothing to do with me, is sitting next to me and putting his head on my shoulder. And I said, yeah, this is their way of reconnecting with that child that they miss. Think about your role as a booster rocket rather than a helicopter parent. So a helicopter parent, they hover over their teen, they micromanage, and they make decisions for their teen. And they do an excellent job keeping their teen safe. A booster rocket actually helps the teen to overcome the task of becoming autonomous from their parents by teaching their teen and allowing them to practice how to be assertive, how to negotiate. The second task is to develop a social network. So having friends is critical to healthy teenage developments because it provides a sense of security and belonging that will actually ameliorate a lot of the uncertainties and uneasiness of being a teen. But it can be very stressful if they are faced with peer pressure. It is also a time when your teen can become very, very interested in pursuing romantic relationships to the extent of that becoming a focal point in all that they think about. And I encourage parents that your role in helping them developing social network is really to help them balance the priority between taking care of oneself and making friends or making that social connection. And you can do that by setting limits on how much time they spend with their friends, providing appropriate supervision, and really getting to know their friends. The third task is developing an identity. So this is a time when your teen is asking some really serious questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What makes me a unique individual? And these are some really tough questions to answer, especially for someone who just wants to get through another day at school without embarrassment, right? It is also a time when they come to terms or begin to acknowledge their sexual orientation, and it can be a stressful process. But I think the most common but also hardest thing for teens is when they feel that like there's a conflict between their own identity and their desire to fit in. So on a daily basis, your teen is faced with the dilemma of, should I assert my individuality in this scenario? Should I go along with my friends? Or should I try to find a compromise in between? And oftentimes, there are no right answer. It really depends on the situation. And I think parents' job in helping their teen through this developmental stage is to reinforce their self-esteem. Because research has shown that children who have higher self-esteem are more able to manage peer pressure. And you can do that by capitalizing on their strength, by reminding them and telling them what makes them a unique individual. And you can also do that by allowing some healthy experimentation. I mean, this is a time when your teen wants to try new food, listening to new kinds of music, having a hairstyle that maybe is not something you would have picked for them. But this is their way of exploring an identity. And if you are able to allow them some of that freedom, it helps them with this exploration process, but also helps them in terms of connecting with you.